Joss awakens at the Five Poppies to find Vaughn surprise her with breakfast in bed, and another show for the servants delivering the meal. As they eat breakfast, Joss proposes they split out today to patrol. He should inspect the grounds, while she would inspect the facilities and may even sell it as an investment in the spa. Britt makes a friend. Britt is sunning on the terrace and checks her phone and social media for a snapshot of Rocco in his baseball gear. Pascal comes over and says she made great progress last night. Britt claims that when she gets what she wants, they see results. Pascal adds, "When you aren't distracted." He seemed to have noticed she has been fixated on her phone recently. Before leaving the honeymoon suite for the day, Joss focuses on her training sessions with Vaughn, their conversations, and their romantic moments. Vaughn heads out to the terrace, where he meets Britt and discovers she is a resort resident. Vaughn approaches her to learn out more about the facility, and asks if she might show him around. She soon observes his wedding ring and wonders if he is happily married. He says he is, and his wife would be cool with his talking to her. Joss emerges in the distance and notices Vaughn flirting with a woman but is unable to see her face. Who will adopt the poor Outback? Gio informs Rocco at the Metro Court pool that Outback is unable to stay at Anna's and must be relocated. Albrecht arrives and greets Outback, saying her recalls her of a dog she had as a child. Suddenly Lulu steps in, sees Rocco with Albrecht and the dog and storms out. Gio had to return to work, leaving Rocco to look over Outback. When Albrecht praises dogs as beings who love unconditionally, Rocco offers she adopt Outback, and he will owe her. At the pub, Emma confronts her grandmother for canceling Dalton's lecture. Anna confirms everything, and she knows she broke into Dalton's lab in California. She's doing it again at PCU, this time to bust him for animal testing. Did she learn nothing after being expelled from her previous school? Anna cautions her that a third arrest could endanger her future, and she is simply trying to protect Emma from herself. Lulu enlists Carly's assistance. Lulu rushes down to the restaurant and informs Carly that she needs to expel Albrecht from her hotel immediately because she can see Rocco at any time while she is staying here. Carly realizes Rocco will know she put her up to this, so Lulu advises her to come up with a creative justification. Carly agrees to find a method to evict Albrecht. Alexis needs Marco's advice at a table. Alexis seeks Marco's objective opinion on whether she can obtain custody of her granddaughter from Drew, given the bad decisions he has been making that have harmed Scout. Marco agreed with Molly's initial assessment that she could only receive temporary custody. Alexis understands that this means Drew will regain custody, causing even more problems. Drew's desperation seeps through the screen when Drew arrives at the hospital to see Willow. She informs him that this is not the appropriate time or place. Drew inquires as to the most appropriate time or location. Lucas steps in and inquires whether Drew has business here. Willow assures Lucas that she is capable of handling the situation, and expresses her gratitude. Lucas steps away, and Willow informs Drew that he must leave. Her employment is the only pleasant aspect of her court appearance. Drew laments, saying he wants to help her get her kids back, but she says she doesn't want or need his aid because he cost her the kids in the first place. Scout misses her family at the Q's. Jason learns that Danny picked up Scout from camp and brought her there. Scout excitedly hugs her uncle Jason whenever she sees him. Danny describes how he visited his sister at camp, and she begged him to bring her here. Jason says he needs to call Drew, but Scout begs him not to since she doesn't want to leave. Jason decides to call Alexis, interrupting her meeting with Marco at the Metro Court, and informs her that she must come to the estate immediately. Drew receives an unexpected call back at the hospital. Drew declares his love to Willow when they are interrupted by a call from Lila's children. Drew finds that Scout has gone AWOL and promises to be there immediately away. Willow informs Drew that when she was a teacher, students would sneak off to explore, but they always returned. She asks Drew to notify her when he finds her. Drew leaves and Lucas witnesses the entire exchange. Lucas gives Willow hell later. Willow meets Lucas in the lounge and thanks him for his assistance, but claims she did not require it. He snarks at him. It appeared like she wanted him to leave so she could chat to Drew. He replies, "Frankly, being seen talking to that man makes you look pathetic." Willow accuses him of policing her, implying that he'll probably run back to tell Michael and Carly. The two engage into a heated disagreement, with Lucas stating that the day he lost Wiley was the most difficult day of his life, and that his sole solace was knowing he'd be safe in her loving arms. However, she has recently prioritized her own demands over Wiley's. He says she's like an addict, and Drew is her drug of choice. What should I do about Scout? Alexis comes at Quartermain's and is surprised to see Scout. Jason asks Danny to take Scout to see the horses and then informs Alexis that Scout begged Danny to bring her here. Alexis feels for Scout, who misses her family and mother. Danny and Scout return from the stables, and Jason makes an excuse to leave Alexis and Scout alone. Alexis asks her granddaughter why she left camp. She confesses that she repeatedly asks her father to bring her here, but something always happens and he does not. Scout sobs because she misses Danny and Rocco and dislikes not living with them. Jason tells his son in the foyer that he cannot take Scout wherever he wants. Danny claims Scout is lonely, and Mom would like him to take care of her. Drew suddenly barges in with Chase, demanding to know where his daughter is. Chase tells Jason that Danny was seen taking Scout from camp. Scout rushes out and into her father's arms. Drew sends Scout to the car, but she tears because she hasn't seen Grandma Monica. He says they'll come back another time, which she quickly realizes is what he always says. When Scout leaves, Danny informs Drew that he misses them and wishes to stay here. Alexis inquires as to how an adolescent can perceive this, and Drew responds that he cannot. Carly gives Marco a lecture back at the Metro Court. Carly approaches Marco to discuss issues between him and her brother. She wants to make sure he doesn't force Lucas to choose between his father and Sonny, as she does not want him to complicate her brother's life. He implies that she is more concerned about how their relationship will complicate her life. Carly simply does not want to see her brother harmed. She informs him that if he doesn't like Lucas as much as Lucas likes him, she'd rather see him leave her brother than damage him farther down the line. Marco realizes where she's coming from and takes off. Emma isn't giving up in the pool, and Rocco approaches Albrecht about adopting Outback. Unfortunately, she cannot because the hotel does not allow pets. Lulu returns to see her son still with Albrecht. Gio informs Emma that now that Anna knows everything, her plan is over. Emma believes otherwise. Emma says she'll stick to the straight and narrow for the next several weeks, put her grandmother off her trail, and then go after Dalton even harder. Later, Lulu smirks as she hears Rocco inform Albrecht that there is an issue with charging her orders to her room, so she must use a credit card for the time being. Albrecht takes off and Rocco brings Outback to meet his mother. Rocco asks her if they can adopt Outback, who is in need of a new home. In the show's last moments at the Quartermains, Drew confesses that he sent Scout to the car so she wouldn't notice what was about to happen. Drew orders Chase to arrest Danny for kidnapping his daughter. Everyone gasps and Chase is startled. In the hospital lounge, Willow informs Lucas that Wiley is no longer his son. Lucas claims Wiley is still his family, and her mess has spilled into this hospital. Stella, Liz, Deanna, and others are coming up to write messages of support for her, but she's making them appear foolish by interacting with Drew. He tells her directly that she clearly cares more for Drew than her children. Willow gets up and slaps him, seeming horrified by what she did. At the pool, Lulu tells Rocco that it will be difficult to take on a dog, but when she discovers that he requested Albrecht to adopt her first, she decides to accept the puppy. Rocco embraces her. Albrecht approaches Carly at the restaurant about her eviction from her room. Carly tells that it has mold, and that she would be given a different room as compensation. Albrecht is aware of Lulu's actions and insists on informing Rocco of his mother's plans. Back at the resort, Joss is taken aback when Britt asks Vaughn to shower her back, revealing a very much alive Britt. Vaughn awakens Mrs. Nash wakes up with breakfast in bed at the spa and kisses her. She questions whether the kiss was necessary because the person who served breakfast was observing. They are supposed to be newlyweds. They need to know where on the resort the tracker went down. They have to start with a romantic walk in the garden, but she has a different idea. They divide and conquer. Do their own thing. She'll get a layout and staff rotations, while he'll gain access to shielded regions. When they finish dressing and she's alone, Joss recalls her training with Vaughn. She smiles as she recalls the kiss, with him getting on top of her and kissing her in bed. Britt is on her phone in the spa pool, looking at a photo of Rocco. Pascal finds her and agrees that she deserves a break. After Pascal leaves, Vaughn approaches Britt and introduces himself as Christopher Nash. She tells him she's a resort resident, and he acts like it's the best thing ever before sitting next to her shirtless. He wants to buy and asks her about it. She deems the manager useless, and he asks her to show him around. She notices his wedding band and inquires if he is happily married. He joked that he isn't sure before admitting that he is crazy about his wife. Britt wonders if she would be jealous. Joss comes at the pool and notices her husband, telling a brunette that he believes his wife will be fine with it. When her husband sprays SPF on Britt's back, Joss is surprised to realize it's Britt. Rocco and Gio pet out back at the Metro Court pool. Albrecht appears and adores the dog. Lulu observes their interaction and goes away angrily, while Anna informs Emma that she cannot have the dog. Emma is unhappy, and Anna admits that she canceled Dalton's presentation. Anna explains that she knows what Emma did to get close to Dalton and bust him. They talk about her arrests and if she is caught again it could affect her future. She doesn't know what she's doing. She believes she is invincible but she is not. Emma is upset because the person she looks up to the most is standing in her way. Anna isn't attempting to stop her, but rather to keep her safe from herself. Didn't she learn from what happened at her last school? The kid is simply attempting to correct a wrong. Rocco promises to hang out with the dog once Gio returns to work. Rocco inquires as to whether Britt liked dogs. Liesl claims she did, but was too busy for one. He advises that she take the dog. Lulu approaches Carly in the restaurant and asks her to evict Albrecht since she was caressing the dog with her son. Carly is perplexed and uninterested. Lulu challenges her to be innovative. Her cousin grudgingly accepts, and Lulu embraces her before running away. Lulu returns to the pool to see her son beside Liesl. She discovers Anna and Chase. They talk about how difficult Emma is and Chase walks away. Gio informs Emma that Anna knows what she's done, thus it's over. Emma does not agree. They watch as Rocco informs Albrecht that there was a problem with her bill. She has to pay using a credit card. Everyone is watching, including Anna who purses her lips and Lulu, who watches eagerly. When she visits her son, he requests to adopt the dog. When she finds that Albrecht is interested, she agrees to adopt the puppy. They embrace. Marco enters and sits with Alexis, who wants a third-party lawyer who will be brutally honest. He is in. She informs him that her granddaughter's future depends on it. She explains Drew's poor decisions. Marco recalls him taking body shots after his date. Alexis claims he is not unfit, but he has been unreasonable. Scandalous. She wonders if all of this will help her obtain custody of her grandchild. Marco believes it could be. She receives a call from Jason, instructing her to come over quickly. She flees, leaving Carly to sit with Marco. She warns him not to make Lucas choose between Sidwell and Sunny. Marco believes her brother has a mind of his own, but she knows he has influence. Marco believes she's more concerned about how it will complicate her life. She emphasizes her concerns, and he takes her warning seriously before leaving. Later, Albrecht arrives and informs Carly that she is being evicted. Carly claims her room has mold. Albrecht believes Lulu organized it all. Drew's rage had been building for days, but tonight it erupted into something darker, sharper, and far more dangerous. His jaw tightened, his speech clipped, and the frustration in his eyes was nearly palpable. He was convinced that what had happened to Scout was criminal, and he didn't want to hear differently. He stormed inside the police station with a determined stride, his decision already made. There was no point in questioning, no place for debate. He wanted justice now. In his opinion, this indicated that someone was going to pay for taking Scout away from him, even if only for a few hours. His accusations were already loaded and ready to fire, with his target locked in. He didn't simply seek an explanation. He wanted an arrest and was willing to go to great lengths to get it. The comments came out quickly and heatedly as he told the officer on duty what he believed had occurred, his voice increasing with each sentence. He accused Spoiler, a person with whom he already had a bad relationship, of kidnapping his daughter. In his opinion, there was no gray area here. Scout's disappearance, regardless of the reasons, was an act of evil intent. The concept that there might be another explanation did not fit the narrative that was motivating him. He was determined to portray Spoiler as the villain, and the more he spoke, the more he believed his own words. The officer attempted to interject with procedural inquiries, but Drew persisted. He recounted every imagined insult and former fight, then folded them into the current scenario like layers of evidence to support his case. In truth, there were specifics missing, parts of the story that Drew refused to admit. There had been misunderstanding, miscommunication, and anxiety, but possibly not the open malice he alleged. Drew, however, was unconcerned about these details. His emotions were propelling him forward like a freight train, and there was no breaking now. He intended to make an example of this, to demonstrate that no one could take his daughter from him without consequences. Scout's indignation was not tempered by the knowledge that he was now secure. In fact, it appeared to amplify it. The more he repeated the events in his mind, the more wronged he felt, and the more certain he became that legal action was the only way forward. Meanwhile, in Port Charles, Jocelyn was dealing with her own type of upheaval. She had been doing errands, half distracted and thinking about everything but what was in front of her, when something piqued her interest. She didn't believe her eyes at first. Perhaps she had made a mistake. It would not be the first time she thought she had seen someone who was no longer alive. But this was different. She halted, her breath stopping in her throat as her sight fixed on the unmistakable person walking casually down the opposite side of the street. Joss found the woman's walk, the way she tossed her hair, and the tilt of her head too familiar to deny. And then the impossible truth became clear. It was Britt. For a brief moment, the world appeared to tilt sideways as Joss absorbed what she saw. Britt was meant to be gone. Britt had been lamented, and her absence had created wounds in so many people's lives. And yet, there she was, alive and strolling about Port Charles as if she hadn't left. Joss's first inclination was to follow, get closer, and make sure her eyes weren't deceiving her. She wove through the small crowd, her heart racing, attempting to keep the woman in sight. Every step verified it. This wasn't a look-alike. This was Britt. Britt did not seem to see Joss trailing her. She was dressed modestly with her head down, but her posture was confident and purposeful. There was no sign of her hiding, but she wasn't staying any place long enough for anyone to stop her. Joss was plagued by 1,000 questions, the most pressing of which was why? Why had Britt vanished? Why had everyone been led to believe she had left for good? And why was she here at this time, wandering around town with no fear? Drew's demand for an arrest had piqued the interest of the police officers. Other cops looked up from their desks, sensing the tension. The officer handling Drew's complaint did their best to remain calm, but it was evident that Drew's rage was not calming down. He wanted action and he wanted it now. Drew responded sharply and unforgivingly when the police suggested they acquire additional information before moving further. He accused the agency of dragging its feet, safeguarding Spoiler, and not caring about his child's safety. The charge hurt, but Drew didn't care because he was past the moment of diplomacy. Drew's voice carried down the hall, and it wasn't long before news spread about the commotion he was generating. Some questioned if Drew's fury was appropriate, while others wondered if this was just another instance of Drew, allowing his personal grievances to determine his behavior. Drew was too focused to notice the whispers. He only saw one possible outcome: Spoiler being brought away in handcuffs. At the same time, Joss had followed Britt to a quieter area of town, where foot traffic was light and the streets were lined with ancient brick buildings. Britt came to a halt in front of a generic door, looked over her shoulder, causing Joss to duck behind a corner, and then vanished inside. Joss stopped briefly before getting closer. The building had no clear signage, yet it didn't appear abandoned. She could hear faint sounds coming from within, but it was impossible to determine what they were. Her palm paused over the door handle, her instincts demanding to know what was going on. She chose not to rush in, instead taking a step back and pulling out her phone. Her thoughts were racing with possibilities. Should she inform someone immediately? If she went straight to Sunny or Carly, they'd expect answers she didn't have yet. If she went to the police, she'd have to explain why she was so certain it was Britt, and she doubted anyone would believe her without evidence. She felt she needed to see more before making her move. This entailed staying put and keeping an eye out. As Joss remained outside, her thoughts returned to what Britt's homecoming could signify. Britt had been involved in so many complicated interactions in Port Charles, and her comeback had the potential to disturb more than just the lives of those she cared about. If she had stayed away for a reason, something dangerous, her presence today indicated that that reason was no longer valid. Perhaps it signaled that trouble was on its way for the folks she had abandoned. Drew meanwhile hit a wall at the station. The officer, tired of his constant requests, told him unequivocally that without more specific proof, there would be no arrest today. The words hit Drew like icy water, but instead of cooling him off, they seemed to rekindle a fire. He accused the department of bias again, alleging that they would act differently if it were someone else's child. His voice was nearly shaking from frustration, and his fists clenched at his sides. He was about to press harder when his phone buzzed. It was a message, brief, mysterious, and unsigned. It simply stated, "You're looking in the wrong place." Drew looked at it, puzzled. He didn't identify the number, and the timing was too coincidental to overlook. Was anyone trying to warn him? Was this a threat or a hint? He abruptly exited the station, ignoring the officer's attempt to call him back, and stepped out into the cold evening air. The city felt different today, like if something was changing beneath the surface. He pocketed his phone, his thoughts racing to figure out who may have sent the message and what it indicated about Scout's absence. Across town, Joss was still waiting outside the building where Britt had gone, her nerves frayed. She thought she saw movement behind one of the upper windows, but it happened too quickly to be certain. Her phone also rang. It was Trina, wondering whether she was still available to meet later. Joss did not respond. She couldn't pull herself away, not when she was so close to discovering the truth. She was so concentrated on the structure that she failed to see the man observing her from across the street, his expression unreadable. He didn't approach, didn't say anything, just watched. Britt was very much alive inside that unmarked structure, and she was well aware that her reappearance would cause waves in Port Charles. It was unclear if the ripples would serve as warnings or waves of disaster. And somewhere between Drew's frenzied hunt for justice and Joss's calm observation, the threads of these two seemingly unrelated events began to twist, foreshadowing a storm neither of them could entirely prepare for. The air in Port Charles seemed electrified now, as if everyone sensed something significant was about to happen, even if they couldn't pinpoint what it was. Drew was on a collision course with things he might not want to hear, and Joss was keeping a secret that could change the story everyone thought they knew. The only question was which revelation would go off first, and how much harm would it cause when it did.